have the lead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Nubley. Thank you for appearing on this important study. You said in your opening statement that SDTC was transferred over to ISED in 2015. Jim Balsillie was the chair, I believe, at that time, and had Leah Lawrence been appointed, I believe she was appointed CEO in 2015. Was that before or after it was transferred?
My understanding is that it was before, in August 2015. We've had testimony that they were put in place to clean up some management challenges with SDTC before that. And I believe you referenced the Auditor General report in 2017. We've had testimony on that too. Governance was part of that review, was it not? No, I believe governance was only the subject of the evaluation in 2018. Not a clean bill of health, I understand, from both Treasury Board and the Auditor General. Is that correct? Yes, I mean, again, I have quotes from the Auditor General of 2017. One is we found that SDTC had measures in place to mitigate potential conflict of interest in assessing and improving projects. Another is SDTC had a comprehensive process in place to review proposals against predetermined criteria. Oh, thank you for that. Now, during your time as deputy in the last parliament, the government introduced a privacy bill, C11, as Minister Baines would have been the lead for that. You recall that bill? Are you referring to PIPEDA? Yes. Well, I recall the bill and that there was a great deal of emphasis on privacy issues related to digital matters. This is something that I talked. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Do you recall the chair of SDTC at the time, Jim Balsillie, going before parliamentary committees commenting on that bill? No, but what I can tell you that is that I met Jim Balsillie many times over the course from 2015 really to 19, talking about these digital issues, the need for an IP strategy in the department, which was announced in 2018. He was focused on patent collectives. I invited him to the department to meet deputy ministers to talk about his experience at his former company and what kind of challenges he faced with IP trolls. I can go on that, but I'll stop. So, were you aware that the minister was not pleased, Mr. Baines was not pleased, according to Leah Lawrence, the CEO, with the criticism that the chair had, Mr. Balsillie, of Bill C11 and other privacy-related issues around Facebook and other data breaches? No. Aware of that. So I'll just read you what Ms. Lawrence's testimony was. In particular, in the time between 2018 and into early 2019, there were several moments when it was raised with me or with my team that there were concerns about public statements that Mr. Balsillie was making as an individual. At the time, there was a consultation underway on data and digital legislation. Of course, this is an area he's an expert in. He would make critiques about the legislation and provide input in his role as an individual. Often in the aftermath of those statements, we would get calls asking why a GIC appointment was making these statements. You don't recall any of that? That your department was calling the CEO to comment about public statements of the chair of SDTC. So what I want to put on record in relation to Leah Lawrence is that she never called me during my tenure as a deputy minister. I didn't ask you the question. You don't recall any discussion between you, the minister, or any of your ADMs or the minister's office staff about Mr. Balsillie's comments in public about the failures of the Liberal legislation at the time? No. What I want to make clear is that we talked about the issues that he had all the time
We were trying to establish a very effective IP strategy with patent collective, as Mr. Balsillie proposed. And we
I
were
understand this. This
taking
is
into
about.
education initiatives
Sorry,
that Mr.
Mr.
Balsillie
Newbley.
wanted us to pursue.
Mr. Newbley, sorry, my question was about his criticism of the government, not about the ongoing consultation.
Oh,
his
I have
public
had no
criticism and his
conversation
role
with the
as
minister in that regard.
SDTC chair.
I had no conversation with the minister in that regard.
Your ADM was conveying those, your ADM Noseworthy was conveying those concerns on his own?
I don't think Mr. Noseworthy would have conveyed anything on a digital charter. His responsibilities were for the oversight.
The headset's not
SDTC.
working. Perhaps the headset's not working well. It wasn't about the digital charter. It was about the public comments of the chair of SDTC being critical of the government. That ADM Noseworthy had asked the CEO whether or not he could get him to keep quiet.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that.
Thank you,
Noseworthy did
Mr.
that on his
Perkins.
own.
That is your time, I'm afraid. Mr. Nader, you're kicking us off. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you to our witness for joining us this morning. Mr. Nobley, I want to go back to your testimony before this committee on a different matter in June of 2023 on the Trudeau Foundation. But my question, you were asked at that time to explain why you had joined and why you had left McKinsey & Company back in September 2022. But at that time, you didn't have time to actually complete your answer to that question. So I want to start off with asking you that question. If you could tell us exactly when you joined and when you left McKinsey and the reasons why you left that company.
Yeah, so I worked for 2 years with McKinsey as a senior advisor. And I began in September 2021 and left in 2023. In taking that role, I did follow all the procedures required with the ethics commissioner. And the reason for leaving was because I was very busy as a consultant with other organizations, but I was not busy with McKinsey. And perhaps one more point, just to clarify, in no circumstance with McKinsey did I play the role of lobbyist. I did not engage with my former colleagues at McKinsey. My role was as a senior advisor, which basically provided advice to McKinsey about the work that they were doing.
Confirm that you didn't. So to confirm that you didn't have any dealings with the government in your time at McKinsey, then.
I did not.
No, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Want to talk a little more about SDTC and its move from its previous home to the umbrella of ISED in 2015. Minister Baines appeared at the committee, industry committee in November of 2017. You were with him at that time. And I just find it interesting about when it's convenient for Minister Baines to note that SDTC was at arm's length and independent when it's convenient for the narrative, and when it's not convenient. Because at that time he was taking credit for it, the move to ISED, taking credit for its then clean bill of health, but then all of a sudden when things went wrong, it was no longer his responsibility. So I want to start out with, was moving SDTC to the umbrella of ISED the appropriate move at the time, or with the benefit of hindsight, should it have been left where it was?
Well, that's a good question. So here's my answer, which is what was really transferred to the minister was a mandate for clean technology. And as I mentioned, part of that involved leading the pillar on clean technology in the Pan-Canadian framework for climate change, which was led by the Minister of Environment. So we were very active, and what we were trying to do as Minister and Deputy Minister was promote a strong clean tech sector that would actually be a leading part of global activity on clean technology, and that the sector would also contribute significantly to growth in Canada. So it was clean technology was definitely a very important part of our innovation and skills agenda. The role of SDTC, though, was but one tool among many in that regard. There was funding as well from the regional development agencies. There was funding from BDC, EDC. One of the challenges was, and this is what we actually focused on, was how do we bring all these players together so that it's easy for companies to come forward and find out where they should go to government, and also what to do about the different requirements that were quite onerous from time to time from the different agencies who are all using different data and data frameworks.
I'm going to move on to a different point because I'm running out of time. I wanted to go. The Auditor General noted that there were 90 cases where conflict of interest policies were not followed. I want you to note in your 7 years as a deputy minister, were there other appointments outside of SDTC that would have been acceptable? Would you have seen it as acceptable to appoint people to boards, agencies within the purview of ISED when you were deputy minister if there were clear conflicts of interest upon their appointment? Would that have been acceptable outside of SDTC and other organizations within the ISED portfolio?
Well, I think I should say that there are conflicts of interest, in my experience, in many places, in departments and agencies and appointments. So what I would have seen is that there were appointments where there were conflicts of interest, but the issue is, are they being addressed and mitigated? And in the case of Mr. Shurin, what I understood was that she had reached out to the ethics commissioner and had guidance. And I expected that that work between her and the ethics commissioner would have continued. And I think that kind of process is the same as for any appointment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll come back to that. I'm sure the time is up.